The host had a name for the rule. He didn't call it a rule, actually. He called it the arrangement. And when Marin asked him what would happen if she broke it, he didn't answer right away. He just said, "You won't want to know. But you'll find out anyway. Everyone does." Marin was 34. She ran a small pottery shop that was barely staying open, and after 2 years of the same 4 walls and the same worried math at the end of every month, she needed to get away from her own life for a weekend. She found the listing almost by accident. A converted farmhouse an hour past the edge of cell coverage, built sometime in the 1800s, with a wraparound porch and a listing photo of fog rolling low across a back field. The description was strange in a way that made her smile instead of worry. It read, "Beautiful, quiet, historic home. One house rule, non-negotiable, explained upon arrival. Guests who follow it report the most peaceful sleep of their lives." She actually laughed out loud reading that. Most peaceful sleep of their lives. She pictured some overly serious property manager, probably an older man, probably the type who'd corner you about a rule involving recycling bins or lawn chairs. She didn't know yet that in 11 months, she'd still think about that laugh. How easy it had felt. How she hadn't laughed like that, free, no second thought behind it, in longer than she wanted to admit. That the last time she remembered laughing exactly like that was with her father, the year before he passed, at a kitchen table that didn't exist anymore. She booked it anyway, 3 nights. The road in was longer than the map suggested, gravel turning to dirt, turning to something barely wide enough for one car. Her phone lost signal a mile before the driveway. When the farmhouse came into view, it looked older than the photos, in a way that felt lived in rather than restored. An elderly man was waiting on the porch. Not unfriendly, just quiet, the way people get when they've said the same thing too many times to too many strangers. He walked her through the house, the kitchen, the guest room upstairs, a locked door at the end of the hall he didn't explain and she didn't ask about. And then, at the back door, facing the field, he stopped. "This is the arrangement," he said. "Every night, at exactly 11:47, you'll hear someone at this door. It will sound like it's trying to get in. It never can. The door holds. You do not open it. You do not speak to it. You do not answer if it says your name." Marin blinked. "How does it know my name?" The old man looked at her for a long moment. "It always does. I don't know how. Neither did my father, and he built the rule before I was born. If you follow it," he said, "you'll sleep better than you have in years. People always do. That part I can't explain either. But it's true. Every time." The first night, Marin almost forgot about the arrangement completely. She made dinner, read on the porch until the sun went down, and by 11 p.m., she was already half asleep with the lamp still on. At 11:47, she woke up. Not gradually. All at once, the way you wake up when a name gets called. Downstairs, at the back door, something knocked. Slow, even, patient. 3 knocks, a long pause, 3 more. She lay there and counted her own heartbeat instead of the knocks, which felt like the only thing she could control. It stopped after maybe 90 seconds, and when it did, she fell back asleep almost instantly, into the kind of sleep she hadn't had in months. The kind without dreams, without that 3 a.m. jolt she'd gotten used to since her father died, since the shop started losing money, since her life had quietly become something she was just enduring rather than living. She woke up the next morning feeling, for the first time in a long while, rested. The second night, the knocking came again. Same time, same pattern. And this time, softly, underneath the knocking, she heard something else. A voice, muffled through the wood. Marin. Just her name, nothing else. Said gently, almost kindly. The way someone says your name when they've missed you. She didn't sleep as easily after that. She lay awake until the knocking stopped, staring at the ceiling, running through every person she knew who might say her name like that. Soft, familiar, aching a little. And there was only one voice that had ever said it exactly that way. Her father's. He used to say it like that when she was a kid, coming home late from the shop, poking his head into her room just to make sure she was still breathing before he went to bed himself. Marin. Nothing more. Just checking. Just making sure she was there. She told herself it wasn't him. It couldn't be him. But some small, exhausted part of her, the part that missed him more than she let herself admit most days, wanted, badly, for it to be. On the third night, the final night, the knocking started at 11:47 exactly, as it always did. And this time, the voice said more than her name. Marin, it's cold out here. Just for a minute. I only want a minute. She sat up in bed. Her hand found the doorframe before she even decided to move, like her body had already made the choice her mind was still fighting. She walked down the stairs in the dark, one hand trailing the wall, telling herself this was insane, telling herself to turn around, and not turning around. At the bottom of the stairs, the knocking had stopped. The voice was closer now, right on the other side of the back door. Marin, open the door. I've been so cold. And for one terrible second, she laughed. This short, involuntary sound, half joy, half disbelief. The sound of someone who thinks, just maybe, an impossible thing might be true. Her hand actually reached for the latch. And then it hit her, all at once. Her father was gone. She had watched them lower the casket. She had picked out the flowers herself, white ones, because he never liked anything too bright. Whatever was on the other side of that door, it wasn't cold. It didn't need her. It only knew exactly what to say to make her want to open it. Her hand was still on the latch when she started crying, silently, in the dark at the bottom of the stairs. Not from fear, from something closer to loss. Because for 3 seconds, she had believed it. She had wanted it to be true so badly that she nearly let something in. She stepped back from the door. You're not him, she said. You're not him. The knocking stopped instantly, completely. And the house went so quiet she could hear her own pulse in her ears. She didn't sleep the rest of that night. She sat in the kitchen with every light on until the sun came up, and when the old man came to check on the property that morning, she was already packed, sitting on the porch steps with her bag beside her. He didn't ask what happened. He just nodded, like he already knew, like he'd seen that same look on other faces before hers. You didn't open it, he said, not a question. No. Good, he said. The ones who do, they don't always come back down those stairs the same. He paused. It doesn't lie, you know. That's the cruelest part. It's not pretending. It really does sound exactly like whoever you need it to sound like. It just doesn't say why it wants in. Marin asked him once if he knew what it actually was. Something that had lived on that land before the house. something the house was built to contain, or maybe just built around. He said his father never told him, said maybe some questions are meant to stay unanswered, because the answer never helps anyone sleep better. She drove home that morning replaying her father's voice in her head, the real one, from memory, and finding that she could no longer fully separate it from the one at the door. That was the part that stayed with her longest, not the fear, the grief that came wearing something familiar. The listing is still up, if you know where to look for it. Reviews still come in, glowing, 5 stars. Guests writing about the best sleep of their lives. None of them mention the knocking. Maybe they never hear their name. Or maybe they just don't want to talk about who answered. If you ever stay somewhere with only one rule, and it doesn't quite make sense, ask yourself why it's the only rule they bothered to write down. If this story gave you chills, you might want to leave a light on tonight. For more true horror stories, unexplained mysteries, and terrifying encounters, subscribe to Haunted Stories. And remember, sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that might be true.